Okay, if you're a parent like me, I'm sure you're telling your kids practically every morning, okay, don't forget to take your vitamins. I want you to stay healthy. In fact, I think you might be coming down with a cold, so let's double up on those. Let's take a couple more because they're not going to hurt you. I mean, more is better, right? Or is it? Well, we've got Dr. Sunil Jain joining us this morning. He's a naturopath at Rejuvena Health and Aesthetics, and I understand that there's a report out of some alarming information on how we may be over-supplementing our kids. Tell everybody about this.
Yeah, so basically there was a report that just came out by the Environmental Working Group that showed how a lot of these fortified processed foods are high in specific nutrients, such as like vitamin A and zinc, niacin. But quite honestly, there's a whole variety of nutrients that are thrown into these type of products that someone can get too much of, outside of just those three nutrients.
Well, and how do we know if they're getting too much?
Well, the bottom line is that when you eat processed food, you're basically destroying everything that's healthy about that product, about the original derivative. And so what they'll do is they'll refortify and put all these nutrients back in, and with the attempts of kind of luring the customer, the consumer, into purchasing it. So you want to just limit the amount of processed food you're eating in general. And if you are consuming some of these items, then you want to really make sure that you're not getting too much by just reading the label and actually looking at how much of a specific nutrient we're getting. One of the big problems is that, unfortunately, the recommended daily allowances are calculated for adults and not necessarily for children. And so, I think it's not even good for an adult to get too much of some of these synthetic nutrients, but definitely for a child.
Well, let's go through some of these things and point out things that stand out in your mind going, well, you know what, if they did this, they don't need this.
Well, one of the biggest things probably are these breakfast cereals. And aside from the fact that a lot of these are just loaded with sugar, they'll be fortified with a lot of B vitamins. They'll have nutrients such as vitamin A added to it, in some cases zinc and niacin, iron. So if you start adding up multiple items of processed foods, you start seeing very quickly how they add up. So you can take, for example, cereal for breakfast, some macaroni and cheese, maybe some peanut butter and a protein bar, and all of a sudden now your recommended daily allowance for iron or for vitamin A or niacin has exceeded, what it should be.
And just looking at what you put in front of you, I'm sure that that's in every pantry. I'm sure that that's part of every child's daily diet.
Most children.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so now how do we avoid this? I mean, what would be an alternative to the cereal? And you said that these are for adults, but yet the kids are eating these.
Right. Well, I'm saying that recommended daily allowance is calculated for the adult. So, if a child is going to be consuming something like this, as I said before, there's, I think, much better alternatives. But if they're going to have consume something like a boxed cereal, then you just make sure that you're having, smaller amounts and you're eating as much of the whole foods along with that. So maybe a little bit less cereal, but some fruit or some eggs along with that, something real.
Okay, and so something real. I see the word Mott's here, and it says right on the side that it's gluten-free. And I am a sucker for gluten-free. I'm like, if it's gluten-free, it's gonna be good for my kids and for me. So we're getting this.
Right.
However.
Well, okay, first of all, going to the gluten-free, we're throwing this gluten-free label on everything. You can buy something that has nothing to do with wheat or gluten, and it'll have a gluten-free stamp on it. But, one of the things to keep in mind when you're also shopping gluten-free is that a lot of gluten-free is highly processed because it's trying to emulate something that's natural, like a whole grain. So you have to be really careful. But this is where the marketing and the labeling system is, I think, flawed in our country, is that you can put labels such as made with real fruit, vegetable juice, made with natural flavors, and really sell the product. But when you look into it a little deeper, you can see that it's the first ingredient is fruit and vegetable juice blend, and then the second ingredient is corn syrup, and the third ingredient is sugar.
Oh boy.
Okay, so even though it says all this real natural on there, it's loaded with sugar, and then it's fortified with, there's vitamin C in here, and there's some vitamin A in there as well. And so, it's a cumulative effect of eating so much of this processed food, which we all know in general is not good for you, that really can put these nutrients at toxic levels.
And the way to counter that is bring in the whole foods, bring in the fresh fruits.
Absolutely.
And when you're looking at trying to balance this stuff, I mean, easier said than done. What kind of effects do vitamin A and niacin and zinc have on a child's body if they're getting too much of it?
Well, you know, they can be very non-specific. I mean, it's very hard to tell some of these, like liver damage, weakened immune system, problems with the red blood cells, flushing of the skin. You know, unless someone's having this on a continual basis, it's very hard to isolate these symptoms. And you know, and it's very rare that a child goes in for routine checkups when they're younger, let alone as an adult. And so, you know, it's really just being cognizant of the fact that, okay, what am I putting in my body and how much of this is processed? And if it is processed, how much of these nutrients are coming into the system? I mean, there's a lot more, I think, negative side effect of some of this processed food on top of the fact that you're getting this, you know, these synthetic nutrients added in. So you just have to be cognizant of that.
Great information, and I think to leave everybody with what you have just said is just pay attention to the labels. Read the labels and add in the fresh produce, the fruits and vegetables. Thank you so much, Doctor. Really appreciate it. We'll be right back with more of the Morning Scramble.